New Zealand could reap some of the benefits of a really clever Australian marketing campaign which saw a 30-second ad screen during the American Super Bowl go global. There's also a longer version of it that is online. It is going off. The advertisement started out as if it were a trailer for a new Crocodile Dundee movie starring actors Chris Hemsworth, who it has to be said is very handsome, and Danny McBride.
Not a lot of crocs out here, huh?
It's just 37,000 miles of pristine, beautiful beach, mate. Did you know that Australia makes some of the finest wines in the entire world?
No, I didn't know that.
Thank you very much.
Wait, hold up. This isn't a movie.
No.
It's a tourism ad for Australia.
Yes. But listen, you're the best Crocodile Dundee since Crocodile Dundee.
Really?
Yes, really. And we had the best trip ever, didn't we?
It was pretty sweet.
Great cameo from Paul Hogan, looking appalled. It turns out it was all pretty sweet. In the 2 days since the Super Bowl, the ad has reached hundreds of millions of people. And not only has it sparked a petition calling for a Paul Hogan comeback, it's also likely to bring economic benefits to New Zealand because, well, we're Australia's neighbour. People visit Australia, they tend to come here too in many cases. John O'Sullivan is Tourism Australia's managing director. A short time ago, he told me that the Super Bowl ad is really just the beginning of this campaign.
We've hit somewhere over 370 million people, so I think that's pretty conservative. I mean, there's different reports and lots of numbers flying around, but it's already delivered for us about a $65 million earned advertising value, which when you line that up against the total cost of the campaign that we're putting into the US market, which is about $36 million over a couple of years, I mean, the ad is already more than paid for itself in many respects, and that's before you put in. I think the television audience for the Super Bowl is around about 110, 120 million people.
So you're saying in terms of the cost of the entire campaign, that one ad has already delivered you $2 for every dollar spent?
Yeah, pretty much, and I mean that's before we even get into the conversion piece. And what we're hearing now from some of our in-market partners like Qantas Holidays and a few other travel agents over in the market, they're already seeing something of about a doubling or sometimes a tripling of interest or visits to websites or inquiries about Australia as a result.
So that stuff is truly measurable, right? So your hits on your tourist partners, Qantas being an obvious example, that's absolutely measurable. And so you've seen a significant increase after the ad's gone to air.
That's right, and that's why we chose the Super Bowl. Not only does it give us reach in the US market, and importantly for us, it talks to about 50% of our target audience in that market alone. But we also know that it's a proven, it's a proven winner in terms of sales and also brand perceptions, which were the two things that we were trying to address in the market.
What was Paul Hogan like, and what was his response to it?
Look, I think Hogan is a national living treasure for Australia. I mean, what he's done for our country, particularly in the US, since the mid-1980s or the early 1980s when he did the Come Say G'day commercials for the Australian Tourist Commission, but then, with the first two Crocodile Dundee films in particular, he really did put Australia on the map in the US.
He absolutely did. They love. Why do they love it so much? I mean,
look, I think, what I think it comes down to, John, it really comes down to Americans like destinations where they feel welcome. Americans like destinations like Australia and also New Zealand where, they feel safe. They like the experiences that both countries offer, good food and wine, a good premium and luxury product, which, both countries have a good reputation for over in the US. And, they like the fact, particularly what they tell us about Australia, is that they like the fact that they feel like if they break down on the side of the road, an Australian will pull over, and they might not know how to fix the car, but they'll give it a go and they'll try and help them. They also talk about, anecdotally about, parties are always better with an Australian in the room, and it's probably a little bit, New Zealanders say that too, but particularly when we're watching the All Blacks play the Wallabies, because usually that means you've got someone to take the mickey out of being the Australian. But
that's very generous of you. Can I talk about your generosity? Because there is a sense that once people come into our neighbourhood, often they will do both countries, right? They will start in Australia and then go to New Zealand or vice versa. So can we expect, and I'm sorry to bring self-interest into this interview, but by golly, why not? Can we expect that we will see some traffic increase as a result of this?
Oh, look, I think undoubtedly. I mean, we know that the North American audience, we know the North American visitors, there is a certain percentage of them. I think from an Australian point of view, it's about 15% of American visitors that come here have gone to New Zealand either before or on their way home. Undoubtedly, I think it will go well, which is why, in terms of a competitive point of view, we think it's great when New Zealand does well in international tourism, because the fact that it means that the regional is doing well, and I think that's really important, particularly from markets like China, but, also the US. And so, look, I think undoubtedly there's a halo effect, because both countries are seen in markets like the US as having, great natural beauty. They're seen as having friendly people. They're seen as having great food and wine. Both countries have a really strong Indigenous culture, and that's really important to American visitors. So, from that point of view, if there's an extra spin-off for Tourism New Zealand, we're happy to help, and we'll be very modest in the commission we ask for.
I was just going to say, you're a charming man, but you have to clip. There's nothing wrong with clipping the ticket. That's the Australian way. John O'Sullivan, who is head of Tourism Australia, they came up with that commercial. It's a phenomenal success. I did say to him later in the interview that I've never met anyone like Paul Hogan in Australia. I just met a whole lot of people who stand around and drink Chardonnay and talk about the latest Kate Blanchett play. But he says they do exist, 2 or 3 of them.